It's the time for the package from China. Let's go! And that is what we're going to be finding out today. So at the back we're finding some information. It says Gamebox 1000 Chinese mainland and version, and the US version seems to be the Gamebox 1001. The centimeters 90 centimeters by 16 by 4 centimeters, weight around 650 grams, and this has a dual core processor with 500 megahertz, so 128 megabyte of RAM. So the overall, like when you're looking at the specs, it is nothing special, and it cannot be compared with those cheap China game boxes. But let's do a quick teardown and see what we're finding in the inside. I didn't do any checking, so we're going to be doing this as we're making this video. So this is actually the game box, and yeah, this looks kind of weird. Seriously, like it looks really weird. Having on and off switch, I think this is the reset button. I'm guessing this is touch or some kind. So we do have, I'm hoping I'm not going to be needing the game card because this wasn't included. I told the seller. At the front we're having 4 USB ports, so that's interesting that we do have this option. So at the back we're finding the Gamebox model GBX 1001. So this is the US version, 6 volt, 6 watts. So the question remains, what is the power supply? The power supply is actually 100 and 240 volts. And yeah, the voltage is kind of weird. 6 volt is something you don't see very often. There is only one controller, and it's called the Gamebox. Yeah, whatever. So this is the cheap PlayStation knockoff controllers, and oh man, the right joystick is already broken. So yeah, that is some really good quality. AV out, specifications, the same shenanigans that we have seen before. Nothing of an interesting information, general specification, stuff that I have to be chit-chatting about. But let's grab myself an old monitor, because that's what we're going to be needing with this particular system. I'm hoping there are even some built-in games, because if there are no built-in games, we don't have a cartridge, we do have a problem. So what is interesting, that this thing actually has a touch sensor on top. Turning it on, you can hear a fan in the inside. So configuration, it's kind of interesting. So let's boot it up and let's see what we're getting with the menu, because this is a system I've personally never seen. Oh, there is already some Game Boy Advance disc, so this thing actually plays more than it already shows. So that is interesting for a first generation of a game box. So I didn't plug in the controller. Let's do that first. What is kind of cool that we have like a 4-player configuration. So let's plug it in. Don't touch the on and off switch. So we do have a 9041 zip file, and there is all kinds of cool stuff on here. So I'm seeing some GBA, we have some MAME, we have some Neo Geo, carrier aircraft, wing. Okay, so that's kind of cool. So there is already a lot of stuff built in. It's interesting. I do wonder like where they were selling this. Were they selling this in only in US region, China region? So where we have been a lot of Pandora's boxes, but before that time there is a lot of weird stuff on here that we can actually play. But there is this like built-in games, and on the box it doesn't state anything. But that's also like interesting to have like this plug-and-play situation with a cartridge. But there is nothing of an information. It would be cool to have an extra cartridge to see what is on there. But let's start up on game and let's see what happens. Oh, okay, I don't know what just happened. Did I remove it or what? No, it just automatically goes up. That's kind of weird. So next up, let's do some Cadillac and Dinosaurs. I'm guessing need to press the A button. Now we'll start up the file itself. No signal. Okay. Oh yeah, this doesn't sound like it's supposed to be. Oh, yeah. And let's be honest, there is no manual whatsoever. So we can actually pause. Well, there is no way of going back to the main menu. Okay. We do have a turbo button. Oh man, that's really bad. So we can jump. Okay. Just more like skipping the intro, like always. But so far, where the audio isn't like it's supposed to be, the over emulation seems to be working just fine. The controller too, like the controller does play okay. And I find it so fascinating with these, like say, cheap whiz systems, finding them after many years after they have been released. But one thing is sure is that when it comes to, let's say, the overall, let's say, performance, it's not perfect. Let's press the reset button. So we're just going to be resetting the full system itself. So I just wanted to see some of these Captain MAME systems or arcade systems, but this is really bad. Yeah, I can still remember those first generation of, let's say, I think it was Dingu, like say device that we can emulate all kinds of stuff, but oh man, the emulation is really bad. So where we do have like okay performance of, let's say, the screen itself, you can just hear how it struggles with the audio. So emulation performance is quite bad on these devices. That is one thing to be sure. Oh man, those first generation things, oh, it's really awful. That is one thing to be sure. And I find it kind of interesting that we do have a pause button, but for resetting, you need to reset the full system. Oh, what a joke. So moving to some Neo Geo, because that is also possible to be played in here. I do wonder, can we find an SD card inside this machine and add more games? That would be kind of cool. Because I didn't see any, let's say, SD cards so far. So when it comes to the emulation performance, it's not bad at all. I do have this idea where the sound effects are a little bit off. But the overall performance again, when it comes to the visual part, is quite good. You have the slowdowns, but that is typical with this system. However, when it comes to emulation performance, it's not bad at all. Of course, newer generation performs so much better, but for this old beast, But I still have this idea that everything runs in turbo mode, particularly when it comes to this game, the drifting game. It sounds so, let's say, over the top, where you can just listen to the audio. But I'm not kind of surprised, because in the first, let's say, generation of game boxes, you had a lot of problems. Oh man, where I do suck already about this game. It is that speed up game makes it not easier to actually play this. But visual-wise, there is nothing to do when it comes to aspect ratio and whatsoever. So it's one of those great indications about first generation devices. So let's reboot. Getting into the game, you can just see and actually hear that the music is so messed up. Oh, now we can see the real slowdowns. So can we actually do some moves? Wow, we can actually do some moves on the controller. I am quite surprised, because the membrane underneath doesn't feel great. But the inputs of the controller are not bad at all. It feels like freaking sandpaper under your thumb, but yeah. Also, these controls have been mapped correctly. So when it comes to like the feel of this is awful, but the input is absolutely great. So I have no clue when this thing was actually made. I think for a first generation device, yeah, you can have some fun with it. Of course, now it is an overflow of different boxes now, but besides that, it's unfortunate that the overall emulation is pretty bad.